And welcome back to Political Connections. Less than 2 months until the primary election in August, and we're taking a look at Congressional District 15. It covers parts of Hillsborough and Pasco counties, all of Hernando and Citrus counties. Right now, Republican Congressman Laurel Lee represents District 15, and joining me now is Democrat Christopher Irizarry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
It's nice to actually have you here in person. A lot of times we do these things by Zoom, and it's good to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about your background.
Yes.
You spent more than 2 decades serving the country in the Army and the CIA. Let's talk a little bit about that. What motivated you to sign up for the Army as a young man?
Well, yes. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, Rick. I appreciate this. Well, what made me sign for the Army was I was coming out of college, and I knew, again, and I experienced this feeling throughout my life. I wasn't where I really wanted to be. I had aspirations, but I wasn't really sure what to do with my direction. And a dear friend of mine years ago, he said, you know, I always wanted to be in the military because it was an honorable thing. And once he said those words and I took them in, I realized that, you know what, there's no way I can really miss with this. So if I'm going to be looking for guidance or looking for direction, it might as well be an honorable path. So that's what I did that for.
You were in the Army for 8 years?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do?
I was a 67 Tango. That meant I was a Black Hawk helicopter repairer. I spent a few years as doing the maintenance, and then I also served in the capacity of a technical inspector. Then
you went to the CIA for 16 years. That's quite something. What did you do for the CIA, if you can tell us?
Well, I will say this. What we did was, I worked in an operational capacity, developing and driving these operations from Washington, and also temporarily and long-term overseas. I served in several theaters outside of D.C. That was Afghanistan later on in my career, Europe, but I also was in Northern Africa and a couple places in the Middle East.
Looking at your website, you talked about your motivation for deciding to run for Congress. The 2024 election. Yes. Elon Musk seems to play kind of a central idea in that. You feel like Elon Musk and Doge were like, I don't know if you'd say an attack on democracy, if you will. Tell us about that.
Well, I would absolutely call it an attack on our democracy, and that would have actually been something that I thought that we could muster, and we would have been okay, and I might have been able to reconcile that because my opinions about Elon Musk are notwithstanding. What actually got me motivated and what I was galled about were the reluctance or the denial of people who were our representatives, who took an oath, just like I did when I was in the military and in CIA, to defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. What I had a problem with is that this oath that they took, they just let it go, and they went from their hand being raised to say, here you go, Elon, have at it. And
so I understand that, but when you use the term attack on democracy, Elon Musk isn't keeping anybody from voting. Okay, so how technically was Doge maybe looking at Treasury things or trying to cut what they claim was government waste? How is that an attack on democracy, in your opinion?
Well, one is that they were mainly, and I know that many of the representatives that are serving right now will say the same thing, they were unelected. They were unvetted. And according to one Republican whom early on in my career or early on in my campaign, I asked them, this is what happened, what did you think? And his opinion, these are not my words, These are his. Well, we let them do this. They're smart in a lot of things, but they don't have a lot of common sense. And I'm looking at a representative say that to me unironically, and I just couldn't stand for that.
Let's talk about some policy ideas now. You're an advocate for Medicare for all.
Yes.
Technically, for somebody who doesn't understand the idea of Medicare for all, I'm a year away from, Saturday's my birthday. I'll be 64.
Happy birthday.
I'm a year away from at least being eligible for Medicare for all. So that's kind of like a senior citizens thing, or maybe if somebody's on disability. What does Medicare for all mean?
Well, Medicare for all, what that means is that is going to be an overarching protection for people in the United States to have access to health care. Now, since the redistricting, I've had people, a new group of voters who have newly brought up the concerns that they're saying, well, that might be a title that might be too far for me, or I don't want to change horses in the middle of the rivers, so to speak. I like my health care, I want to take it. So one of the things that we've said is, like, listen, we can call it whatever we want, but it's got to meet certain criteria. And these have been universally accepted to the people that have had misgivings about that title. For one, it has to be something that is universally acceptable, or accessible. I'm sorry, I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. It has to have a reasonable price to carry out. There has to be an even amount or equal amount of service between urban and rural hospitals. We have to make a continuous effort to make sure that what we're doing it the best way possible with best practices, and also it has to be to satisfaction.
So let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Most Americans are probably, if they're not senior citizens, they're on private health insurance through their employer, and that costs their employer money. Would those people be switched over to Medicare? And if not, this extra money that it would take to fund Medicare for all, where would that money come from?
Well, those are excellent questions. One, the early misgivings about that were expressed to me, well, I like everything the way it is. I don't want to change it. I would not be therefore advocating for people to absolutely mandate that, yes, you have to change your plan. You have to come over to this. And when it comes to your second question about how we would pay for it, look, we already pay an exorbitant amount of money for the system that we have, a system that people fall between the cracks, that they have to deal with networking, restrictions on networks. They have to then have a middleman go out there either through the hospital or to the insurance to say, will you be able to cover this? I believe that just based on the numbers that I've seen, that for the same amount of money, we can get universal accessibility across and not have to worry about premiums, not have to worry about co-pays. We would minimize out-of-pocket expenses.
So you feel like Medicare for all would not cost the government any more money than we are spending now, because people do end up getting health care some way or another?
Yes, yes. Well, I would look at it this way. Let's take a look at the administrative cost of, say, Medicare compared to a common plan. Starting with that, if you were to just look at it from that factor, you would see that there are 3 cents for every dollar that was spent in Medicare just towards administrative fees. If you were to look at a private plan, you would see anywhere between 15 to 18 cents per dollar just to push paper around, just to keep the operations running.
All right, Christopher, we've got about 2 minutes left, so we're going to have to get some quick answers from you here. Earlier this week, I talked to another congressional candidate in a different district, and he felt like in order to save Social Security, because we just don't have enough younger people paying into the system because of demographics, that we needed a big wave of immigration, lots of extra young people paying into the system. Is that maybe something that you favor in order to keep Social Security for us older people solvent?
Well, obviously, if we were to have more people in the workforce that would be able to pay these taxes, then yes, I would absolutely agree with that. But also, what we have the problem with, we have the issue of the cap, where it's only, I've heard different numbers, but maybe it changed recently, but it was 165,000 and above, or 180,000 and above. You don't have to pay into anything anymore.
So basically, people at the higher incomes, they need to start paying into or pay taxes into the system to help keep Social Security solvent, you're saying? That's
what I believe, because scrap the cap, and I believe that because when it comes to the original intent of the program, to make sure that people aren't completely thrown out, I believe that preserving Social Security, it's not a question, it's a contract, and I believe in sticking with the contract.
Christopher Irizarry, unfortunately, we've run out of time. We've had a great conversation, but thanks for joining us on Political Connections.
I appreciate the opportunity again, Rick. Thank you so much.